Imagine waking up one day and realizing the very people you trusted the most were hiding dark, twisted secrets. How far would someone go to protect their wealth, even at the cost of their own blood? Welcome to Crime Tales Across Times, where we uncover the most chilling stories from the past and present. Today, we'll unravel the haunting tale of greed, betrayal, and a family torn apart by one man's unthinkable plan. Stay with us as we dive deep into the shocking case of the Barnet family tragedy. It was the summer of 1997 in a quiet, affluent neighborhood of Lakewood, Ohio. Known for its tree-lined streets and sprawling suburban homes, the area was a haven for wealthy families seeking a peaceful retreat from the bustling city. Among these residents was the Barnet family, admired for their charm, wealth, and seemingly picture-perfect life. John Barnet, a successful real estate tycoon, was the face of their success. His sharp suits and charismatic personality made him a prominent figure in local business circles. His wife, Clara, a former schoolteacher turned homemaker, was equally well liked for her warm smile and active involvement in community events. Together, they had 2 children, 16-year-old Emily, a bright and artistic teenager, and 9-year-old Michael, a playful and curious boy who loved dinosaurs and baseball. To the outside world, they were the epitome of the American dream, a family with everything one could desire: wealth, a beautiful home, and a bond that seemed unbreakable. But behind the polished exterior, cracks were beginning to form, and no one could see the storm brewing within the walls of their grand home. John's real estate empire, which had flourished during the economic boom of the early 90s, was now teetering on the brink of collapse. The housing market crash hit him hard, and bad investments left him drowning in debt. He tried to maintain the image of success, but the pressure was suffocating. Clara, once his biggest supporter, began urging him to sell off assets and make lifestyle changes. These conversations often ended in heated arguments, with John refusing to let go of his pride. The tension affected the children as well. Emily, in her rebellious teenage years, frequently clashed with her father. She dreamed of becoming an artist, but John dismissed her aspirations as impractical and urged her to focus on a real career. Michael, too young to fully understand, often found himself caught in the middle of the family's turmoil. On the morning of July 14th, the picturesque calm of Lakewood was shattered. Neighbors began noticing something unusual about the Barnet house. Normally, by 8 a.m., Clara could be seen tending to her garden or walking the family's golden retriever, Max. Emily would often be heard playing music from her room, while Michael rode his bike in the driveway. But on this particular day, the house was eerily silent. The blinds were drawn, the car sat untouched in the driveway, and Max was barking relentlessly in the backyard. Concerned, a neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, decided to call Clara, but there was no answer. Hours passed, and the unease grew. Eventually, Mrs. Peterson contacted the police to perform a welfare check. When officers arrived and entered the home, the scene inside was harrowing. The once lively house was now a crime scene. In the upstairs bedrooms, Clara, Emily, and Michael were found, each lying lifeless in their beds. The victims had been shot at close range, with no signs of struggle. The precision and calmness of the crime were chilling, as if the killer had meticulously planned every detail. The most puzzling part? John Barnet, the patriarch of the family, was missing. What initially seemed like a tragic home invasion quickly turned into a mystery that would grip the nation. The Barnet family's perfect image was shattered, and the truth behind their tragic end was about to unravel in ways no one could have anticipated. Each victim had been shot, execution style, in their beds. The only person missing? John Barnet. At first, investigators suspected a home invasion gone horribly wrong. However, as they combed through the Barnet family's pristine home, they found no signs of forced entry. The doors and windows were locked from the inside, and there were no indications of a struggle. Jewelry, cash, and other valuables remained untouched, ruling out robbery as a motive. Detectives quickly shifted their focus to the people closest to the family. The chilling truth began to unravel when forensic teams discovered crucial evidence. The murder weapon, a .38 caliber handgun, was found in a trash bin at a gas station several miles away. Ballistic tests confirmed it was the weapon used in the murders. Disturbingly, the gun was registered to none other than John Barnet. A deeper dive into the gun's purchase revealed that John had bought it just 3 weeks earlier at a local firearms store. Surveillance footage showed him calmly filling out the paperwork, his demeanor giving no hint of the storm raging within. But that wasn't all. Forensic teams lifted John's fingerprints from the handgun, and gunpowder residue was found on clothing believed to be his, discovered discarded in the same trash bin. This discovery marked a turning point in the investigation, shifting John from a grieving father to the prime suspect in the murders of his wife and children. Witness statements further complicated John's case. Several neighbors reported hearing the faint sound of gunshots in the early hours of July 14th, but dismissed it as fireworks. One witness, a night shift worker, claimed to have seen John's black Mercedes speeding out of the neighborhood at around 4 a.m., just hours before the police arrived. The timeline matched the approximate time of death determined by the coroner. Detectives dug into John's financial records and personal life, uncovering a mountain of problems. His once thriving real estate business was on the verge of bankruptcy, with debts exceeding millions. Creditors were calling relentlessly, and foreclosure notices were piling up. Investigators also discovered that John had taken out a hefty life insurance policy on Clara and the children just months prior to the murders, totaling $2 million. This raised the chilling possibility of financial desperation as a motive. John's personal life was equally tumultuous. Interviews with Clara's friends revealed that the couple's marriage was far from perfect. Clara had confided in close friends about John's growing temper and erratic behavior. She had even mentioned considering separation, though she was hesitant due to the children. Emily's friends added another layer to the story. They described how she often felt stifled by her father's controlling nature and mentioned frequent arguments over her dreams of becoming an artist. Michael's teacher recalled that the usually cheerful boy had seemed withdrawn in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. As the evidence mounted, authorities issued an APB, all points bulletin, for John Barnet, who was still missing. His car was later found abandoned in a parking lot near the state border, intensifying fears that he had fled. But the question remained, why would a man who seemingly had everything resort to such a horrific act? Investigators were left piecing together the psychological and financial pressures that may have driven John over the edge. Was it the weight of insurmountable debt? The crumbling facade of a perfect life? Or something deeper, more sinister that no one had seen coming? As the story gained national attention, the media and public alike were consumed with theories. John's face was plastered on news outlets, with headlines branding him the father who vanished. The quiet neighborhood of Lakewood had become the epicenter of a tragedy that no one could forget. Let's rewind a bit to understand John's state of mind. Born to a working-class family, John had always dreamed of making it big. When he met Clara in college, she was drawn to his ambition and charisma. Together, they built an empire, but success came at a cost. John's obsession with wealth and status grew over the years. As the real estate market crashed in the late 90s, so did his fortunes. Clara, once supportive, began urging him to sell their assets and downsize. But for John, admitting failure wasn't an option. Adding fuel to the fire was Emily, their teenage daughter, who often clashed with John. She wanted to pursue a career in art, a dream John dismissed as foolish. These domestic tensions painted a picture of a man spiraling out of control, desperate to regain control of his crumbling life. And just when you think this story couldn't get any darker, wait until you hear what John did next. But before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to Crime Tales Across Times. For more gripping stories from around the world, your support helps us uncover these tales and give voices to the victims. John Barnet didn't stay on the run for long. 3 days after the murders, he was tracked down by police at a dingy roadside motel in Indiana, just a few miles from the state border. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed John purchasing snacks and water, his face partially obscured by a baseball cap. Despite his efforts to remain unnoticed, a sharp-eyed attendant recognized him from news broadcasts and tipped off authorities. When officers stormed the motel room, they found John sitting on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at a faded family photo he'd brought with him. The room reeked of alcohol, and several empty bottles of whiskey littered the floor. Next to him was a handwritten suicide note, folded neatly and addressed to his deceased wife and children. The note, later made public during the trial, revealed a chilling glimpse into John's fractured psyche. In it, he claimed he had killed his family to spare them from the shame and suffering of financial ruin. John wrote, "I couldn't bear to see them lose everything we built. They deserved better than a life of poverty and disgrace. This was the only way to free them." The note, while haunting, painted a picture of a man consumed by his failures and delusions. Yet for many, it only deepened the horror. Could he have truly believed that murder was an act of mercy? After his arrest, John was extradited to Ohio, where the trial of the decade unfolded. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious locals, and grieving family friends. The prosecution painted John as a cold-blooded killer who valued his pride more than the lives of his loved ones. They emphasized his calculated actions, purchasing the gun, researching life insurance payouts, and staging the scene to suggest an intruder. The defense, however, argued that John's mental state had deteriorated under the weight of financial ruin. They brought in psychologists who testified that he suffered from severe depression and delusional thinking. His defense team pleaded for leniency, claiming he was not in his right mind when he committed the heinous act. Throughout the trial, John showed little emotion. He avoided eye contact with witnesses and never addressed the court. The only time he spoke was when asked to confirm his name. His stoic demeanor only fueled public outrage, with many branding him a monster incapable of remorse. The most heart-wrenching moments came from the victim impact statements. Clara's sister, holding back tears, described her vibrant and loving sibling. Emily's best friend spoke of her artistic dreams that would never be realized, and Michael's teacher recalled his infectious laughter that brightened the classroom. The jury deliberated for just 7 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. John Barnet was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge delivered the sentence, she made a poignant statement. "Mr. Barnet, you sought to control your family's fate, but in doing so, you robbed them of their most basic right, the right to live. There is no justification for your actions, and you will spend the rest of your life answering for them." John remains in prison to this day, serving his sentence in isolation due to the notoriety of his case. He is reportedly unrepentant, spending his days writing in journals and refusing interviews. As we close this chapter, one question lingers. Was John Barnet a man driven to insanity by his circumstances, or was he always capable of such evil? What do you think? Could anything justify such a heinous act, or is greed the ultimate destroyer? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.